1873, if you were an African from Cape or Cairo or from Timbuktu or from Harare, you could walk, engage in commerce, sell things, sing, dance, do whatever you liked, because you were finding expression amongst those people who you found in whatever geography there was, of which there was one geography, which was Africa. Now, we, in our discussions with Mkoma Mtumwa and others, kept talking for almost a year around how do we define ourselves. And we wanted to create a broad basis of definition, because if you remember, self-determination was that each of us should define ourselves for ourselves. We shouldn't be defined by anyone else. So 1873 was a convenient neutral that allows you to define yourself as an African however you choose to define yourself as an African. It's an interesting thing about human beings that if you take a dog or you take a cat, and you raise it amongst human beings, it'll meow, it'll eat cat food, it won't act like a human being. If you take a dog and you put it amongst monkeys, as a puppy, it'll learn to bark, it'll look for food that dogs eat. It won't act like a monkey. If you take a human being and you put it with dogs, it will walk on all fours, it'll look for dog food, and it will learn to bark. Yeah? We get our humanity, our ability to communicate, our ability to speak and understand our Wunuism or our Ubuntuism. Our understanding of humanity comes purely from other human beings. It doesn't come from ourselves. It becomes every single word that you know to say, you learned from some other human being. Yeah? So, at our very center, at our very core, we are a product of other people. Those people are those people that you come into contact with, wherever that may be. For some of us, we've lived many years in other places other than the home of our parents. Some of us have chosen to go to those places. Others were forced to go to those places. But we make home wherever we are. And if we are self-determining people who vested in the right in some individual to say, blessing Rugara, you are a Zimbabwean, because we've given you a passport that says you are from Zimbabwe. What if Blessing Rugara chooses to say, no, I'm not a Zimbabwean, I am a South African. I'm a United States citizen, or I am a Rwandan. Why? Because I found myself in Rwanda and I wanted to do work in Rwanda, and I found a home in Rwanda. I like it here in this geography. What's wrong with that? How can all nations built on the idea of self-determination then go about limiting those people that they said they were liberating? So, for me, I am a big proponent of the idea that each of us must be self-determining, even when it means that we must oppose vociferously those who would limit our ability to determine who and what we are. That for me is the idea of 1873. That, I believe, is the inheritance that I get from my ancestors. Which ancestors walked, some say from Cameroon, through the Bantu migrations, walked all the way down to Zimbabwe, some stayed, others kept walking into South Africa. To now try and limit how I choose to define myself based on the borders that were constructed for political and economic convenience of others makes absolutely zero sense, and it's something that I choose to refute, regardless of who would tell me that that is not the case. Now, I happen to be an attorney, so there are legal arguments that you can make for why the very construct of any one of these nations doesn't make sense. But at a human level, I think we all have to kind of take into account our right to define ourselves. I want to leave you with one little very interesting story. There's a guy that you may or may not know who operated in the Niger Delta, somewhere in Nigeria, what we presently call Nigeria, between 1871 and 1873. His name was Jaja of Opobo. Jaja was born a slave. And when Jaja, at the age of about 30, had risen to the point where he had his own trading company that was trading in palm oil, which was the major trading commodity of the region, he decided that it would be intelligent for him to put together all of the different palm oil traders, pay off their debt which they owed to the British who they sold palm oil to, and start to deliver all of this palm oil to the British himself. So become the wholesaler for the whole region, which he did. He negotiated with the British traders, he negotiated with his fellow African palm oil distributors, paid off everyone's debt, and became a single entry for palm oil. At some point he decided that he was actually going to buy a ship, 2 ships, 3 ships, 10 ships that he would use to trade palm oil from West Africa all the way to Europe, bypassing the European tradesmen who were middlemen who were doing that trade before, which he successfully did again. He was then invited by the Queen of England to see her and to express his ideas of what he felt the future of African business, African trade would be, which he then did. At some point, or upon leaving, he was put on a ship and sent to Latin America. Unbeknownst to him, he thought he was coming back home. He went to Latin America and never made it back alive to the continent of Africa. But in 1873, he had built what in essence is a corporate organization based on fundamental business truths, that if you have some product that someone wants and you can find an effective way to get it to them and you can sell it, you can actually make a living for yourself. So this is part of, for those of us who are business people and for those of us who are interested in trade, for those of us who don't recognize borders and don't respect borders, we respect people but not borders. So we love the South African people, and as much as we love those who call themselves the Zimbabweans and the Mozambicans, etc., the people we love, we know that from our own history we can be inspired by the actions of those who've come before us and who believe that they could build a future for themselves and for generations of others like them through trade and commerce and building organizations that were sustainable. So I'm just happy to be able to share that story with you and to continue to engage. And this was impromptu, so thank you for giving me the time. I very much appreciate it.
Thank you, Blessing. I was just thinking, if 1873 we were to read